Welcome to the Midnight Ritual, a captivating tale that weaves the threads of love, tradition, and resilience. Journey with us into the heart of the Petrovs, a family steeped in ancient Siberian spiritual practices as they navigate the challenges of a new life in America. Experience the profound depths of Ekaterina and David's love, tested by cultural divides and the relentless demands of a mystical heritage. This story will transport you to a world where the sacred and the everyday collide, revealing the enduring power of patience and understanding in the face of extraordinary circumstances. The Petrovs migrated to the United States, landing in the bustling heart of New York City just after World War II. The family, consisting of parents Ivan and Olga, and their 23-year-old daughter Ekaterina, hailed from the remote, mystical forests of Siberia. Their heritage was steeped in the ancient arts of spiritual healing, a legacy rich with the use of herbs, roots, animal sacrifices, ancestor worship, and mediumship. Ekaterina, a striking young woman with an aura of the otherworldly, quickly adapted to life in America. Despite her mystical upbringing, she soon found love in the unlikeliest of places, a vibrant, atheistic artist named David. His background was one of rationalism and skepticism, worlds apart from Ekaterina's deep-rooted spiritualism. Yet, love blossomed, transcending their cultural divides. As with many cultures, the Petrovs upheld the sacred tradition of abstaining from premarital sex. For them, the true beginning of marriage was marked by the payment of a dowry, a live cow, which had to be slaughtered, with the bride-to-be consuming its bile as a rite of initiation. This posed a considerable conundrum for Ekaterina and David, living in the heart of New York City, where such practices were not just alien, but unimaginable. Determined to bridge the cultural chasm, David orchestrated a plan. He found a rustic farm with a rural bed and breakfast not far from the city, a place where the Petrovs could reconnect with their roots. Here, he procured a cow and arranged for the traditional ceremony to take place. The weekend getaway was a whirlwind of ancient rituals and modern accommodations, culminating in the sacrificial ceremony that cemented Ekaterina and David's union. The Petrovs, enthralled by the pastoral setting, decided to purchase a nearby farm conveniently close to David's workplace. The new farmstead featured 2 houses separated by 32 feet, with a mysterious empty room about 15 feet behind them, the size of 2 garage sedans. This vacant space was swiftly transformed into a temple for the Petrovs' nightly rituals, a place of profound spiritual activity. David, although deeply in love, was entirely unprepared for the intensity of these nightly rituals. Every midnight, like clockwork, the Petrovs would rise and proceed to their sacred room. The air would fill with the pungent aroma of burning sage, a smoke so thick it seemed to materialize spirits from the ether. The family would chant in ancient tongues, their voices rising and falling in an eerie, hypnotic cadence that seemed to pierce the very fabric of the night. Their traditional drum, crafted from cowhide, produced a deep, resonant beat that echoed across the farm, a heartbeat of another world. This wasn't merely a gentle rhythm. It was a relentless pounding sound that reverberated through David's bones, keeping him awake and on edge. For an entire hour each night, the Petrovs engaged in their otherworldly ceremonies. The air would thrum with an electric charge as if the very spirits they communed with were present in the room. Shadows danced on the walls, flickering in the dim candlelight, creating an atmosphere that was both mesmerizing and terrifying. David, an educated man with no room in his rational mind for such mysticism, found himself enduring these nightly disturbances out of sheer love for Ekaterina. The rituals seemed to grow more intense with each passing night. What started as a simple ceremony became a full-blown spectacle of spiritual fervor. The singing grew louder, the drum beats more frantic, and the air heavier with the scent of sage and the unseen presence of ancestors. The Petrovs thrived in this new environment, their spiritual practices flourishing in the relative freedom of the rural area. Yet for David, it was a nightly ordeal that tested the very limits of his love and endurance. He would lie in bed, eyes wide open, heart pounding in time with the drum, as the thin walls did little to muffle the supernatural symphony. Each night, David felt as though he was being drawn closer to the edge of sanity. The rituals seemed to pull at the veil between worlds, making the night air shimmer with unseen forces. He began to see things in the shadows, hear whispers that couldn't be there, and feel a cold presence that left him shivering under the blankets. Despite the escalating intensity, David remained, driven by a love that transcended reason. The Petrovs' rituals were a bridge to another world, a nightly passage that he endured for the sake of his beloved Ekaterina. It was a love tested by the ancient and the modern, the rational and the mystical, a love that had to withstand the relentless beating of the midnight drum. As the Petrovs' spiritual healing business flourished, the demands on Ekaterina grew exponentially. Patients seeking solace and cure flocked to their rural sanctuary, seeking the ancient wisdom and mystical remedies the family offered. With each booked consultation, Ekaterina had to prepare herself by observing strict rituals of purity. This meant no intimacy, no kisses, no physical affection for an entire day before each session. Ekaterina's parents, Ivan and Olga, were gradually passing the baton to her, ensuring she absorbed the full breadth of their ancestral knowledge before they could no longer perform their sacred duties. The expectation was clear. Ekaterina would one day pass this knowledge down to her own children. For David, however, this cultural legacy turned their married life into a labyrinth of frustration and longing. Night after night, David's attempts at intimacy were met with Ekaterina's firm refusals. She explained the necessity of spiritual cleanliness, urging David to understand. Yet the more he tried to persuade her, the more distant she became. Eventually, Ekaterina suggested sleeping in the temple on nights before consultations to maintain her purity and avoid temptation. David found himself in a surreal nightmare. His wife was now a ghost in his own home, a phantom he glimpsed briefly after work but never truly embraced. They no longer shared a bed, their nights divided by the sacred space of the temple. The isolation was maddening. David's heart ached with a loneliness he couldn't articulate. He tried to be understanding, but the physical and emotional distance gnawed at his soul. This went on for 2 long years. Sometimes he would go months without any intimacy, the business of the Petrovs booming as word spread about their powerful healing abilities. Ekaterina became a pillar of strength in her community, revered and respected. But for David, she was a distant figure he could hardly reach. Desperate to adapt, David threw himself into his work, hoping to distract himself from the painful reality. He convinced himself that he would get used to it, that eventually he would find a way to cope. But the nights were interminably long, filled with the echo of drums, the scent of burning sage, and the haunting chants from the temple. His love for Ekaterina was unwavering, yet he felt the weight of their cultural divide pressing down on him like a crushing burden. David's nights were a tumult of sleeplessness and frustration. The temple, just 15 feet from their home, was a constant reminder of the life he couldn't touch. He would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, hearing the distant murmur of Ekaterina's voice, knowing she was so close, yet impossibly far away. Each consultation was a nail in the coffin of their intimacy, each patient a barrier between him and the woman he loved. Sometimes, in moments of weakness, David would stand outside the temple, watching the flickering candlelight and the shadows of the Petrovs performing their rituals. He felt like an outsider, peering into a world he could never fully understand or be part of. The rituals that had once been an intriguing mystery became a source of deep resentment. Yet despite the overwhelming frustration, David clung to hope. He believed in their love, convinced that they could weather this storm. He cherished the fleeting moments they spent together, the brief glimpses of the woman he married. Those moments were rare, like precious gems in a sea of darkness, but they sustained him. One particularly harrowing night, after weeks of no contact, David reached his breaking point. He stormed into the temple, the heavy scent of sage hitting him like a wall. Ekaterina and her parents paused, surprised by his intrusion. The air crackled with tension as David, eyes filled with anguish, demanded an explanation, a resolution, something to bridge the chasm that had opened between them. Ekaterina, torn between her duty and her love, took his hands in hers, her eyes filled with tears. She explained the sacredness of their work, the importance of her role, and the legacy she was bound to uphold. David listened, his heart aching with a love that was both fierce and desperate. He realized then that his love for Ekaterina was not just about physical closeness, but about understanding and respecting her identity, even if it meant enduring unimaginable loneliness. With a heavy heart, David resolved to stand by her, to support her despite the pain. He accepted that their life would never be conventional, but it was their life, bound by love and sacrifice. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges, but David knew that he would find a way to endure. For Ekaterina, for their love, and for the hope of a future where they could finally be together, not just in spirit, but in every way. As the peak of the Petrovs' spiritual healing business began to subside after 2 long years, David finally found himself enjoying the presence of his beloved wife, Ekaterina, more often. Yet there were aspects of her deeply rooted spirituality that he still didn't fully understand or know. For instance, Ekaterina's spiritual practices dictated that she could not wear underwear unless she was menstruating, and she was only permitted to dress in dresses and skirts. She was also not allowed to shave her private parts or use contraceptives. Ekaterina, now more present at home, felt ready to embrace motherhood. She prepared a potent concoction for herself and David, a blend of herbs and roots passed down through generations. The result was nothing short of miraculous. Ekaterina became pregnant with triplets. The joy of welcoming 3 new lives was quickly followed by another pregnancy at 28, this time with twins. Pregnancies seemed to follow one after another, until they had 13 children in total. David marveled at the fecundity of their union, although he couldn't help but feel overwhelmed at times. Ekaterina's spirituality forbade the use of contraceptives, and he respected her beliefs despite the challenges. Their home, once a quiet sanctuary, now bustled with the energy of a large, loving family. As the demands of the consultation business waned, Ekaterina found more time to devote to her children. Her parents, Ivan and Olga, remained actively involved, allowing her to balance her spiritual duties with the demands of motherhood. David's resilience and unwavering love paid off in ways he could never have imagined. Despite the cultural chasms and endless nights of isolation, he was now a happy man surrounded by a large, affectionate family. The consultations continued, though less frequently, and the once bustling temple now served as a quieter place of reflection and occasional healing. Ekaterina's parents, still vibrant and active, guided their daughter through the intricacies of their spiritual heritage while also doting on their numerous grandchildren. David's patience and love were rewarded in full measure. He found himself not only the father of a large family, but also embraced by the rich cultural traditions of the Petrovs. His home echoed with laughter, love, and the gentle hum of ancient songs. The once daunting midnight rituals became a cherished part of their family lore, a testament to the love that had bridged worlds. In the end, David realized that true love demanded not just patience, but an open heart and an unwavering commitment to understanding and embracing the complexities of one another's lives. The Petrovs, with their rich spiritual legacy, and David, with his boundless love and resilience, had created a life that was both extraordinary and deeply fulfilling. Their story became a beacon of hope and perseverance, proving that love, patience, and understanding could overcome any obstacle. As the years passed, the Petrovs' healing practices were passed down to their children, ensuring that the ancient wisdom and traditions would continue to thrive. And through it all, David remained the steadfast heart of a family bound by love, tradition, and the enduring strength of the human spirit.